So I was working at the mall at an income tax place. Did my tax return for the first time, and I put it in the computer and up came my refund. And I was like shocked. It was so
In a
big.
good way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so big. And I'm like, well, I must have did something wrong, right? I'm like going checking it. Did I do anything wrong? And as I checked it, I realized that we qualified for what was called an earned income credit. And you get an earned income credit from the government. It's additional money from the government when you're like right at the poverty line. And that was kind of the slap in the face because, my mom brought me up to be independent, right? And financially independent. So not only was I not financially independent, like we were at the poverty line as a family. And I was just, it threw me back. It really threw me back. And I realized that this isn't what I want for myself. This isn't what I want for my family. And I'm right there, Matt. I'm right there where my mom told me not to be.
Today's guest is Audrey Faust. Audrey is a business financial coach. She's an expert CFO, and now she's a best-selling author of a book called She Grows Rich. Her story is one of really overcoming adversity, and I think I related to this, challenging self-limiting beliefs and building this life of financial independence and purpose. She takes us back to this pivotal moment when she discovered that her family was at the poverty line. And it was this realization that really became the catalyst for her journey towards this financial empowerment that she now has. Through her determination, shifts in her mindset, and strategic decisions, Audrey not only built a successful career, but she also created a life of abundance and fulfillment. She shares how key moments like working with a mindset coach, transitioning her business to better align with her values, really shaped her path. In this episode, you'll hear Audrey's reflections on finding purpose, building wealth, and empowering others, especially women, to take control of their financial futures. I think many of you will resonate with parts of Audrey's journey. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Audrey Faust. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift. Candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I am here with Audrey. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for wanting to be a part of this. We were talking a little bit before recording, and we're both in Florida, which is kind of rare. I don't talk to too many people in the same state.
Yeah, I'm in Florida half the year when it's warm, best weather.
You're smart. Yeah. And you're in South Florida. So there's a little bit more warmth and tropical nature down there. So hopefully you are enjoying this season of your year and staying warm. And then you go back north and you stay warm there,
Yes.
but not too warm, right? Well, thank you for wanting to be a part of the Life Shift podcast. For anyone that's tuning in that is here to listen to Audrey and her story, this show really stems from my own personal experience. And what happened was when I was 8, I was visiting my dad. My parents were divorced. They lived states apart, and I was visiting him. And my dad brought me into his office, and he had to tell me that my mom had died in a motorcycle accident. And at that moment in time, I lived with my mom full time. I was just kind of visiting my dad. And everything after that moment, he told me that whatever the last word of that sentence was, everything about my life that we all had imagined for my life was going to be different. I was going to have to move states and move schools, have a new parent, that's taking care of me full time. And this was like late 80s, early 90s. And I don't think a lot of people were really talking about grief or helping kids through that mental health journey. So I kind of pushed that all down. And all along, I was always wondering if other people had these like line in the sand moments in which everything was different. So here we are. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm able to have these conversations with people on the Life Shift podcast about these pivotal moments. Not all of them are tragedies, thankfully, but we all have many pivotal moments in our lives, which I've learned. And I think when I first started, I was a little naive thinking, there's just one, but there are a lot of them if we're lucky, right? And we're able to kind of move through life. So I'm just so honored that I've talked to over 150 people now about these pivotal moments. And the thing that I've learned is that there is something about everybody's story that I can relate to or that resonates with me. It might not be the main character part, it might not be that big part, but it might be something in the corner of their story in which I feel less alone in my journey. So, a little bit about the Life Shift podcast. Thank you for wanting to share your pivotal moment with my audience and all the people listening.
Thank you, Matt. I'm happy to be here, and you're so right. Like how we can resonate with just pieces of people's stories, and just know that we're not alone. That's so special.
Yeah, it's funny too because I hear from a lot of people too, and yours, I think your story has an element of this, but people will talk about how maybe they have read a book before, but then they were going through something in their journey and they picked up that book again, and something that they had read before now stood out to them in a totally different way that changed their perception or changed the way that they were thinking about themselves or about their lives or those kind of things. So, it can be something as simple as a sentence, an email, a notification, anything like that that can change our lives in a good or a bad way. There's so much more that we have in common than we have different. So I just love it and I could gush about it, but we want to hear and talk about you. So maybe to kick us off, you could tell us a little bit about who Audrey is in 2025.
So I am a business financial coach. I work with small businesses, mostly women, and help them overcome any money mindset issues as well as understand the financial pieces of their business so they can become more profitable. Fun fact, only 30% of businesses are actually profitable.
That's an unfortunate number.
It is. It is. And there are plenty of things that I work with them to help them become more profitable. And understanding the financial pieces of your business is like so important for that, right? Everybody gets into business because they have a gift or a talent, and the financial piece just comes with it. So you either got to figure it out the hard way and learn it, or, get somebody to help you understand that piece.
It's so important. I think there's so many people also that start businesses and only think of the revenue aspect of it and not so much like all the expenses that come along with it. And, and maybe Shark Tank's been out a lot. So people hear a little bit of those little background things of things to think about. But at the same time, I think when you have this dream of starting a business, it's always just thinking about the money that will be coming in and not the money that you have to spend to hopefully bring in that money, especially at the beginning when there's such a big offset at the beginning. So that's amazing work. Do you feel really fulfilled by doing that work? Is that something that like fills your cup?
100%. Yeah. I especially love working with women, like, because they have a lot of like beliefs around money and around business and around creating a business that they just struggle a little bit more than men do because of these beliefs. But, it's because of our upbringing. We're really the first generation of women that can have a business. I mean, women couldn't even have a credit card until 1974.
It blows my mind every time I hear
that. So it's like we weren't allowed to have money until, just a few years ago, really.
And now there's a ton of women just kicking butt out there. And it's so wonderful to see, and hopefully more. And hopefully you're helping people be more profitable in that way. And obviously, you're driven and you're passionate about these things because of your own story. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, I should say I'm assuming, because I think so many of us, the things that fill us up, like this podcast, fills it up because of my own personal experience, right? So is it right to make that assumption that your own lived experience helps you feel really passionate about this?
Yes. I'm passionate about helping women be financially independent because of my own story and my mother's story, actually. So it goes all the way back to her.
Well, why don't you paint the picture of what your life was like leading up to this pivotal moment, and we can kind of just go from there.
Sure. So my mother was in a marriage with my father, and he struggled with mental illness. So it was a very difficult marriage for her to be in, but she couldn't financially afford to leave him. He was the breadwinner. He was bringing in all the money. She could not afford to leave him. So she felt like she was stuck in a marriage that she didn't want to be in. And what she told me, growing up was make sure you can always support yourself. And it stuck in me, but I didn't necessarily listen to it.
Really like know what it means. It's hard to understand what that means when you're growing up.
Yeah, I like you think like it's easy to support yourself. It's not as easy as when you're younger, you think, oh, yeah, I'll just go get a job anywhere and support myself. It's expensive to support yourself. And you don't, like you said, you don't really understand when you're younger, like in high school and things. So, but I had that in my head my whole life. So I was 27 and had two young children. Now, even though my mom constantly said she wanted me to go to college, but I didn't do that great in high school. I had like a brother who was quote unquote the smart one. And he constantly like told me that I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't, I didn't know anything. And as big brothers often do to younger sisters. Unfortunately, I believed him. So I had all these fears around like going to college.
Because you didn't want to fail.
Yeah, I was afraid to fail. I was,
I get that.
and I've dug into that a lot, and I was afraid to fail because that would mean he was right. That's what I realized.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I was afraid to fail, not because of that, but with my own experience, I was afraid to fail because if I failed, my dad might also leave because my mom left. So it was this fear of abandonment. I had to be perfect. So it's a little different. I really tried to be perfect, but at the same time, I was so afraid of failing. So I chose the easy things. Like I chose the things that I knew I could do really well. So I get that.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of people afraid of failure. Right.
Well, I think it's also society. I think for so long, too, especially now with social media, it's like this performative nature of we show the highlight reels. And I try not to do that because like we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to fall on our face. And sometimes those are the best moments because we realize how strong we are after we fall on our face, but we don't realize it in the moment because it hurts. But at the same time, it's important to realize that nobody's perfect and who wants to be perfect, really.
Yeah. Well, fail your way to success. So.
I guess so. That's how you keep learning, right? You keep trying. So anyway.
Yeah. No, it's a quote I recently heard from Tony Robbins was there's no such thing as failure, only outcomes. And I was like, boom, that kind of blew my mind.
Right.
So.
It's like changing your perspective on the word that we assumed for so long was like this really scary thing. And you just turn it on its head and you're like, oh, it's the same thing, but a more positive outlook of it. So you were 27, you had young kids.
So, I was 27. I had two young kids, and my husband was starting his own business. And with two young kids, I didn't go to college. I had an administrative job. Like I couldn't afford childcare. So I went to and got trained on how to do income tax returns. So I was working at the mall at income tax place. Did my tax return for the first time, and I put it in the computer and up came my refund, and I was like shocked. It was so big.
In a good way, yeah.
Yeah, it was so big, and I'm like, well, I must have did something wrong, right? I'm like going checking it. Did I do anything wrong? And as I checked it, I realized that we qualified for what was called an earned income credit. And you get an earned income credit from the government. It's additional money from the government when you're like right at the poverty line. And that was kind of the slap in the face because, my mom brought me up to be independent, right? And financially independent. So not only was I not financially independent, like we were at the poverty line as a family. And I was just, it threw me back. It really threw me back. And I realized that this isn't what I want for myself. This isn't what I want for my family. And I'm right there, Matt. I'm right there where my mom told me not to be.
Well, it started to make sense probably too, right? What she was saying.
Yeah, I was like, I couldn't support myself, let alone two kids. And, although I was happily married, I'm still married to the same person today. You don't want to be stuck in that marriage like she was. Things change on a dime.
Yeah, you need to be self-sufficient. I think it's interesting too because I would imagine that if you knew that you couldn't afford childcare and those things, you probably felt some of those things in your everyday life of the fact that like I just can't afford the things that maybe I should be able to afford or someone said I should be able to afford and those kind of things. But then you see this innocuous earned income credit words and verbiage on the screen and you're like, that's the thing that triggers you to be like slapped in the face when life was happening, slapping you in the face all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it's fascinating
absolutely.
how we can do that as humans. It's like this survival mechanism too, where we kind of just go through the motions. And then, like that book example I gave you earlier was kind of like when you saw your tax returns and what you were going to get. First of all, you were probably excited because there was a lot of money there. But
Yeah,
then, but then when you saw like the reality that the only reason that you're getting all that extra money is not because you quote unquote earned it, right? It was
yes.
because someone did you feel that it was almost as if someone was feeling bad for you and giving you that money? Did you assume any of that? And please say no if you didn't.
Not really. I just felt like this isn't like who I am. Like I'm not somebody that needs the government to support me.
So it's more of an ownership thing. You wanted to
Yeah.
feel power there.
Yeah. It was an identity crisis, I think, is what it was. I was like, this isn't who I am. Like, this isn't how I was raised. Like, this isn't more like that.
So it was kind of like it lit a fire in you, or was it, did you play? I would probably play a pity party for a little bit. Did you have any of those moments, or was this like, let's go? We're going to make a plan to get out of here?
No, it was a reality check. So I was like, this isn't the life I want for myself or my children. Like, I want to be able to give them all the things that they need, and want. So, of course, the only thing I knew at that point was like, okay, well, not only do I got to figure out how to bring some more money into the family, which I did, I still continued to work part time, moved on to working for Vanguard, which is a financial institution, learned a heck of a lot there. That was like the best education I ever had.
Is
But
that like financial planning kind of stuff, or
yes,
okay?
yes. But I just worked in customer service. So
Not
I
just
was,
you worked in
I
customer
know, thank
service.
you. I heard that. I know it was like, I worked in customer service, but I got the best education of my life.
I bet.
And then I started taking a couple classes going back to school. The one class I was good at in high school was accounting,
Which is a rare thing. Not a
right?
lot of people are good at accounting.
Well, it's kind of funny because I thought it was the easiest class. And there were people failing all over the place in that class. And I was like, this is the only class I got an A in. Other than math. I was good at math too. But I was like, wait a minute, this stuff is easy. How are you failing? But it was just evidently my gift, right? But it was also by hand back then. And I was like, I could never sit there and do this like all day by hand. But things changed, technology changed. But that was kind of my like one little nugget that I'm like, okay, well, I was good at accounting in high school, maybe I can go back to college and do something in accounting. So that's, I took classes. It took me about off and on about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it took 2 years in the middle off because in the meantime, as I took a couple accounting courses, I started my own bookkeeping business because that was a business that I could make run on like my own schedule and work around the kids. So back then there was no working from home, right? There was none of that. Like you had to go in an office and work 40 hours or forget it. So after I took a couple accounting courses, I started my own bookkeeping business and that got super busy. I was successful in that. So I took 2 years off in the middle. And then I was like, wait a minute, I need to get this degree. So I at least have the degree in my pocket. So then I ended up going back after the kids got older and a little bit older. And it took about 10 years total, but like 8 years of schooling part time and had another kid in the middle of all that.
Would you say that it triggered you to find purpose at all?
It was more about financial independence. Like, yeah, like it was more about like, I need to be able to support myself, to have that like ability to walk away if I want to, that my mom didn't have.
Yeah. No, I think it's a big driver, but you also like, and the reason I ask that is because it sounds like you also kept steering yourself to the thing that you were good at as well.
Yeah.
So, and then by way of that, if you're doing bookkeeping for other people, you're helping them be better in a way. So then there's that fulfillment that comes from all the pieces. So that's where that came from. I'm swinging and missing a lot with my assumptions with you, but
It's
I love
okay.
it.
I'm
It-
different.
well, and two, did you have struggles in choosing to go back to school, because there is a cost that comes with that? So was there any part of that where it was like, okay, I know I'm at this point, I need to make more money, but now I need to shell out more money in order to end up to the place that I want to be?
Well, I did a lot of loans because we weren't making a ton of money. I got a little bit of assistance on that. That didn't bother me for college for whatever reason, but college is expensive. But yeah, I did get a little assistance and some loans, and pretty much was able to pay for most of it through the assistance and loans,
That's
like,
awesome.
and then pay it back later. There was a couple, little bit here and there that we had to pay out, but especially in the beginning, I was able to like do it through loans because I was doing it slower too,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So that helped.
Did your journey start to become like a snowball effect from there? Like, were you making your way to financial independence and at some point you reach a summit? Or is this an everlasting journey for you? Like, what does that look like for you as you're really changing your life to become successful in the financial sense to make sure that you are independent if life throws you a curveball?
Great question. So, as I took some accounting courses, started the bookkeeping business, and then paused it for 2 years, as I said, and then went back, right? One of the reasons I went back was because I would work with CPAs and I would see what they were making. And I knew how to, like, I was working for small businesses, but then once a year, the CPA would come in and I would see the bill that the CPA sent. And I knew how to do tax returns at that point, and I knew how long it was taking them to like do these tax returns and what they were charging. And I'm like, I think I need to make that kind of money. So, you say there are multiple pivotal moments. So my goal was to get my CPA. And once I finished my accounting degree, I went and left the bookkeeping business for a little while and went to work for a CPA. Well, I worked for that CPA for about 2 weeks and said, this is not happening. Went back to my bookkeeping business, but it was a decision I had to make. And it felt depressing at first, Matt. It really did. Like, that was my goal, to get my CPA. But in order to get your CPA, you have to work for a CPA for 2 years. And in tax season, CPAs, the offices, they're working till like 10 o'clock at night. I had kids that were in school at this point. I'm like, I'm not going to not see my kids like on a given day. Like, that was a no, like that was a deal breaker. And I don't think I realized the hours that were worked and expected to work during tax season. That and the fact the work I was doing in my bookkeeping business was actually at a higher level than the work coming in the bottom of a CPA business that I was doing. And I hated it. So there was a couple factors. And then I was like, oh, forget this. And I went back to my bookkeeping business and said, yeah, it was a little depressing because I had it all planned out. I was going to study for my CPA. I was going to get that CPA, but I realized that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted.
Yeah, and I think that's okay to learn that
Yeah.
and shift your priorities or your goals to something different. I think so many people can relate to, well, I mean, myself, I think so much of my life, I played this society's checklist game where I felt like, okay, I'm going to be happy when graduate high school. Okay, no, not yet. When I graduate college. Okay, no. When I get my first master's degree. Okay, no, like everything, it was just like keep moving the line instead of, and this is probably what you were doing in your bookkeeping business eventually, was finding the joy in the moment as you're building whatever those things are, instead of like looking for that next milepost or whatever it is. I was always just chasing,
Yeah, same.
thinking whatever that next one was going to be was going to make me feel the way that I assumed it was going to, and it never did. So at some point I just stopped running, because it was like, I mean, how many times is it going to take for me to learn my lesson that each step wasn't going to bring me any closer to whatever I thought the success was going to feel like? I think your devastation is warranted. I think your sadness is warranted. I think all those pieces are warranted. But it's important that we realize that that's just a moment, right? It's just
Yes.
something that happened, and now we make decisions. Like, you made a hard decision, right? Like, you're like, okay, well, that was my goal. It's not my goal anymore because my kids are more important. I can do other things. So, I mean, good for you for getting through that. But I think it's so relatable. So many of us
Thanks.
hit that. We're like, nope.
That's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Pivot.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you keep at the bookkeeping business?
Well, what ended up happening then is when I went back to it, I changed the structure a little bit. Got really picky on the clients I was bringing in. I would go around to different businesses. When I went back in and I said, I'm only going to one business a day, and they have to book me for at least 5 hours. And that was kind of like the thing, because I was running around a lot, and that got to be a lot. So I changed the structure, which helped. And in changing the structure, I got a new client, and that client turned out a few years later, they were growing and growing. They were multi six figures when I started with them. And then, they were growing to multi seven figures. And then once he got to about 2 million, he said, I'm going to keep growing. I want to grow this business even further. He's like, would you like to come on and be my controller full time and, have, grow an accounting team? And I thought about it for a little while because I liked all my clients, but I thought, well, this is my opportunity to go to the next level, right? Because at that point, I'd only done bookkeeping. And I'm like, now I get to go to the next level, really use the accounting training that I have from college. And it'd be an amazing learning experience. And it was like 5-minute commute from my house. So that was a no brainer. So after some thought, I did. I said yes and transitioned over, became his controller. He did keep growing all the way up to like 5 million when I actually finally left there. And the reason I left there was the 5-minute commute became a 60-minute commute because he moved the business. And that was not fun.
It wasn't the job that got you out there necessarily. Or would you have stayed if it was 5 minutes away?
Probably. But there were other issues going on. I did have an accounting person. I had a bookkeeper working for me now. She was great. And the business was getting to a point where I didn't have as much connection with the owner as I originally did because it just got too big, right? And when I first started with him, it was like 5 of us. And now we're up to like 20, and it's just, I really enjoyed like working with him and helping him grow the business. And then it just became like, oh, I'm just over here kind of doing the accounting. And I didn't get involved in the business aspect of it, which really what I loved, right? It was more just, you're just doing the numbers and then, so there was that factor, but the 5-minute commute, he was a great boss, like to,
It would have been easy to stay.
it would have been easy to stay, but when the commute changed, it was kind of like, okay, I need to do something else. Like, this is kind of 2 hours in my car a day was like not fun. So I was like, I'm going to go back out and do my business again, but I want to make it different this time. I want to work with even larger businesses, and I want to work with,
Well, you were making a difference before.
yes.
All those people that you were helping.
I was, but I like, so here's the thing, Matt. Here's what I wanted to do versus what I wasn't doing in my bookkeeping business. When I moved in as the controller role, right, we were analyzing things. We were looking at numbers. We were deciding what was going to grow the business, right? The bookkeeper role, most of my clients, they didn't even want to look at the numbers. They just wanted me to do my thing and then leave. And, at the end of the year, they'll cry if they owe taxes or celebrate if they don't. But this owner that I worked with was different from the other ones, where he wanted to grow. He wanted to look at the numbers. He wanted to make sure they were right. It was a lot more fun. So for me, than just data entry as a bookkeeper. So I wanted to create a business. Controller on demand is what I named it, as a controller for small businesses. So I did. I stepped away, ended up doing more bookkeeping than I wanted to do, but then did a quick shift and started working with larger businesses doing their accounting. And I ended up hiring a bookkeeper, and she was doing the bookkeeping and I was doing the accounting up until recently. I started coaching in the last couple of years.
What made you do that?
What made me do that? So I worked with a mindset coach probably, oh gosh, probably like 2018 is the first time I ever worked with a coach of any kind. And it was a mindset coach. And it changed my life. I was just like, wait a minute, I can change the thoughts in my head. Like, that's possible.
It is. It is. What made you choose to get a coach, though, in that first? Like, what triggered that? Because I think that that's a hard leap for a lot of people.
Well, I worked with a coach for a little bit at the last company that he paid for. So I was an executive coach, right? So I saw some transformation there too. And I was like, oh wow, this
So you
is
get to dip your toe in the water.
Yeah, that his company
on
paid
his
for.
dime.
So I got coaching, right? I understood what coaching was about, and I realized like it was pretty cool. And then I was following this coach on Facebook, and she was doing a lot of lives and things like that, and I was interested, and got on the phone, and then I was hooked.
And so you started to shift your mindset, and that brought you to wanting to coach other people, or was it just the experience of being coached that was like, this feels good, maybe I can help other people in that way?
It wasn't immediate. I never thought that I could like be a coach. Like, I thought you had to be special.
I get it.
The person I worked with, she had a psychology degree. So, I was just like, I didn't think like that was a possibility for me. And
Were you
then
hearing your brother's voice at all in any of that?
probably,
Yeah.
I hear my brother's voice my whole life.
I get it. Yeah. No, we really do. We hold on to these things. I think you might agree with this, maybe not. When I think about some of these things that really hold me back, I also logically think that doesn't make any sense, Matt. Why are you thinking that way? But it's still so deep seated that you're just like,
It is.
yeah, I hear it's like, how do I get rid of it? So yeah, I could imagine that why you feel or you felt at the time, like, I'm not good enough, or like, who am I to be a coach?
Who am I?
Right.
Yeah.
Who am I to be a podcaster? Like, we just
who
do
am
it.
I to write a book? That's all. That was a whole
Exactly.
nother thing.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's, peel the layers and it's still in there, right? You keep peeling them, you keep working with coaches and it's still down there, just another layer deep.
Curious about, like, in this journey where you're kind of navigating your career and creating in your career and following different paths, and then taking sharp rights or lefts or whatever they need to be to find whatever's feeling right at the time. Was there any point on that journey where you had like a marker in which you were like, okay, I'm financially independent now, or I've hit this point where I'm quote unquote safe? Or were you always like, was it never enough?
Both.
Okay.
Like, yeah, if that makes sense. So there was a point in my life where I did, for the bank, you have to do a personal financial statement, right? I've actually, clients I worked with, I created a calculator that does the exact same thing. And on there, you find it has your net worth. Not many people know this, but because I had an accounting background, I was like, wait a minute, that's like my net worth. And when I saw that number, the first time I saw $1 million in my net worth, I was like, what? Like, I'm a millionaire? Like, I mean, I was like shocked because I didn't even realize it. And that was definitely a light bulb moment. But then I'm also to the point, well, this like I want to live this lifestyle of living in Pennsylvania and living in Florida. So I do need more and I do need more, you know?
Did you feel like you were out of the grasps of like the hands of the past?
Yeah.
Like a safety almost, like, okay, I've passed this line, whatever that line
Yes.
is that you created for yourself. Did you feel like a weight lifted or any of those pieces that came along with it? Or was there more responsibility now that you were already successful? So now you got to keep it going. Because I think there you could play both sides.
Well, I didn't mention that I did go back and get my MBA as well. And I feel like after I got that, I felt like I could, worst case scenario, I can always get a job with the education I have, in corporate and be able to support myself, no problem. I think that was
I did
like,
not feel that when I got my MBA.
really?
But I was also like 23. So what did I know at
Oh,
23?
yeah.
Like nothing. I got a free MBA. I was like, oh, cool, a check mark, you know. So life
Well, I
was,
was older. I was much older.
which if I would, every time I talk to people that are considering, I'm like, make sure you're working for like 10 years
Yeah.
before you go do it. Cause you'll get so much more value out of it. I was 22 when I started it. It was a 10-month MBA program. It was just like doing classes in my undergrad. I mean, it was harder, but it was, there was no life experience that I was able to really bring to the table when I'm doing my suave marketing case study from Harvard Business Review, like whatever it was. But in any case, I could see how that could be validating in your journey because of what you did in between and the time that you took to get your undergrad. Adding that extra layer becomes such a marker that probably feels safe.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, even getting my undergrad and my MBA as an adult, I probably learned more than if I would have taken those classes right out of high school, because especially the fact I even had my own business while I was going to school. I was working in doing accounting while I was going to school. So it was just kind of like it all made sense to me. And maybe that's why I felt like it was easier for me.
I think it just probably feels more valuable. I think you start to
Yeah.
feel like, oh, like I can actually use this. Like I can implement whatever I'm learning here, or I can tweak something because I just learned about it in this class. Whereas younger individuals, you're just like going and you're just doing the homework and then you're forgetting about it and you're, like, so it's not as valuable. So I think when I talk to young people, I'm like, give yourself some time and then go back.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Life will teach you a lot of things and then school can like put things into perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, especially the MBA. Like I got that. I took a break after I got my undergrad and then gosh, I think it was like 8, 10 years. And then I went back and got my MBA.
What do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned about yourself though in this journey of, because like there's a lot of pivots that you've even mentioned in probably the brief version of your story, right? What's the biggest thing you learned about yourself compared to that version of you that was like in the mall working?
I am smart. Even though my brother said I wasn't. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned.
When did you accept that?
Probably, when I did well in college in my undergrad, I was like, okay, I'm pretty smart.
And
Like,
there's proof in the pudding now. Like you
yeah.
can, if he ever questions you again, you can show it in his face kind of moment, right? Like I did it.
Well, I think even in order for me to go back to college, I think I started seeing it as evidence in like when I was working, when I was doing a job, like things would, like I would get things. I would not, I'm like, okay, I might not have been a history buff and I hated history, like, and I didn't do great in social studies, but like business, I was good at. So that was kind of probably the shift. I'm not like gonna sit there. The high school work just, to me was not
High
not
school's a whole
interesting.
other experience. There's a lot of other things happening during high school years. So I think we can
Yeah,
discount
true.
that. Were you always this version of you, like in happy, like, I mean, you've been laughing a lot in a way, like, have you always been this way or is this kind of emerged from this experience?
It's kind of funny because I was super shy when I was younger. So shy, Matt, that I remember my mom like took me on a play date. It was like kindergarten or first grade. And probably the first and last play date she ever took me on because I literally sat under the kitchen table and she stayed and like I clung on to her leg the whole time. Like that's how like quiet and shy I was. So, like, even in high school, I had a friend that she used to call me Mouse because I was so quiet. So I've come out of my shell a lot. I have a husband who's very social and very outgoing. So that helped for sure too.
Yeah. I would imagine the confidence in having successful businesses and navigating that world can give you a little bit more confidence to just be who you are and who you want to be versus feeling afraid that the world is going to like eat us and minimize us to dust. I think we can all feel that way at some point in our lives, but you can tell the zest or the feeling you have for life and the things that you do, and that it seems like you're enjoying life at this point of your journey. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I love what I do.
In your percentage of your life, like how much does what you do bring you joy? Because there's got to be stuff you don't like to do.
Well, I mean, part of the reason I'm walking away from the done for you side of the business is because it doesn't bring me joy anymore.
Good.
The coaching brings me joy. I like helping people.
Are you transitioned full time into that now?
In a couple of weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
In like 4 weeks, I'll be transitioned completely away from that. But, I had to give them enough time to
Well, fair.
find somebody else.
Fair. That's nice of you. You briefly mentioned it or you hinted at it, but that you're an author now.
Yes.
Why did you decide to write? Like, what does that journey look like? Why did you do that?
Well, that's an interesting story too. So, as I mentioned, my net worth was $1 million at one point. It is now over 2.5. And, I was at the poverty line and I built that, right?
And so many people have been there.
Yeah, October of 22. I was on a vacation with my best friend and we were like sitting poolside. She's seen like how I did this, right? So I had a couple, I've invested like forever and I also had a couple rental properties that helped. And she said to me, "Why aren't you sharing your story?" And I said, "What do you mean? I don't have a story." She's just like, because we were sitting there talking, rental properties or finance, building this and that. And, she always would ask me a lot of questions. And we've been friends since high school. And she goes, "Why aren't you sharing how you've built your wealth? Like, why aren't you sharing that with people?" And I was like, "Well, it's not that special."
You're like, who am I?
I'm like, who am I to do that? And, she didn't mention a book or anything. That was kind of came to me like as my idea, but she just meant sharing it with people, teaching people and working with people to do that. So I was like, well, give it a try. I'll see if anybody wants my help. Then a couple months later, I'd always wanted to write a book. I just never knew what I was going to write it about. Not always, I should say, in the last couple of years. I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be kind of cool to write a book? But I have no idea what I want to write about. And then when she said that to me, and like within a couple weeks later, somebody else said something similar to me, like, "You are like this financial genius. Like, I just want to be around you all the time." Somebody said to me, and I was like, "Me?" Like,
This seems to be a theme in your life.
I know, right? And then I thought about it more. I'm like, well, it'd be kind of cool to write a book. Why don't I write a book on all the things that I've done and to build my wealth, like all of that. And, it morphed into something even a little bit more than that. But universe, God, however, whoever you believe in, like in January, I was working with a coach and another coach and another coach in January of 23 decided to do this like come ask us anything. So I went, and one of the coaches was a book writing coach. And it was mid-January, January 1st. I had said, one of my goals this year is to write a book. And boom, right there, right in my lap. And I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't even
You're
know
like, damn,
someone
now I
like
have
that
to do it.
existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I did kind of like follow her from the sidelines and do her free stuff for a while. And then I was like, I was hooked. And, I started working with her, and I don't think I could have wrote the book without her, for sure. Like, I would have had no clue how to do it, what to do.
You probably could have written it, but maybe not structured it in the same way.
Yeah, that's it. She helped me structure it in a way that like people can follow, and, you know, each chapter is structured correctly. I had no idea before that. And I also started working and coaching women on personal finance. We also put their stories in there as well.
Nice. Did you find on that journey of writing out your story and the map and all the, like what that journey could look like for other people? Did you learn anything about yourself in that journey?
I'm a writer. I never thought I was a writer. I mean,
well, I'm thinking, and maybe it's a little different because it's a financial focus, but I would imagine that by uncovering some of the path that you took and the decisions that you made, that maybe reflections come out a little bit more of like, oh, I wonder why I did that, or I can see why I did it that way, and it kind of just like you alluded to earlier, that peeling the onion back a little bit of like, well, that sure connects to what my mom said, or, that's related to my brother or whatever those things. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
somewhat. I mean, a lot of things, like if I feel like every day, Matt, if you look back at your life and you're like, why did this happen? Well, if I look back at my life, I can see why everything happened the way it did. Like, even though I said I was devastated about not getting my CPA, when I came back to my business and restructured it, I got rid of some small clients. And the big client that came in was the one that I actually that actually went to be the controller. So it opened the door because I was booked full before that. And then I said, no, I'm only taking back the big clients. And then that left a room for like one more big client to come back in. So
it refocused you. Yeah. And I always find some really fascinating things when I decide to write something about my own personal story, whether that's losing my mom or the things that I did for the 20 years failing my grief journey after that. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that until I put the words to paper, because I think sometimes it's all jumbled up in your head. And then when you try to make sense of it on paper, new things evolve. So that's kind of where that question came from.
Yeah, I think it did. Like, probably the pivotal moment came out like in writing the book. I didn't realize that pivotal moment was really a pivotal moment, probably. You know what I mean? Until I wrote the book. So that was a big thing that came out, because my book writing coach was kind of like probably helped me bring that out, because she's like, you want to have a story, in
We
the
need a
beginning
trigger.
of, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't have a story. And then I thought about it for a few minutes, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I do.
I can trace it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting game. I've heard from a lot of my guests who, they'll say, like my cancer journey was this pivotal moment. And I was like, well, that's kind of like, I mean, yes, but it's also an extended period of time. Was there a moment? Was it the diagnosis? Was it a scan? What was it that like really feels like it was the trigger that comes from me thinking when my mom died, it was the moment, but it wasn't. It was when my dad told me, because she had already been gone for a couple hours at that point, and my life was still the same. Nothing changed until the words came out of his mouth. I'm sure for him as well, of his moment is probably a little bit different from how, life shifted in that way of like, now I got to tell this 8-year-old that his mom's dead kind of moment. So I think we are lucky when we can take the time to trace back those little shifts, because if things like that happen again in the future, maybe we have different tools now in which we can approach them with a more advanced mindset, I guess, moving into those moments and making decisions. Like for me, I knew how terribly I grieved my mom. So when my grandmother got sick, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I had to have that final conversation with her when we could, say all the things, no regrets, sit by her bedside until she took her last breath. Like I knew those were the things that I needed to do, but it's only because I knew I didn't get to do them the first time around. And so that's kind of where the show really comes from, is the blessing it is to be a human that is able to reflect and find that journey back to that like pinpoint, like you pulling up your earned income credit and going, I am at the poverty level. And this is exactly what my mom told me not to be. And I need to do something about it. And from there, you lit that fire and it took your path and the way you are. And now you're, because of seeing that on the screen, you're helping women business owners be better, improve their lives, improve their business, succeed, meet their goal. Like, so it's because thinking like, what if you didn't
come full circle?
What if you just looked at the number and you were like, yes, big check, and you didn't scan down to the details. Not that you would, because you're a math person and an accounting person, but it's just fascinating how certain things that we do or certain things that happen in our lives allow us to help others in the most beautiful butterfly effect kind of thing here. So I hope you look back through this whole conversation. A lot of it was, you mentioned like there were moments in your life where you were, who am I to do that? Like, I hope you're feeling a lot more like, I am me, like this is me and this is who I am, because it's certainly very impressive from the short amount of time that I've been able to talk to you. So
thank you.
Thank you for putting you into the world. And I hope that the journey continues for you in that way.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
I like to kind of bring us full circle. We'll talk about your book in a second, but to wrap up your story, is there anything that Audrey now, 2025, living in Pennsylvania, living in Florida, like doing her thing, is there anything that if you could go to Audrey that's sitting at that desk in the mall about to like pull up her information, is there anything you'd want to tell her?
It's all going to be okay. Yeah.
And at that moment, you probably would have been like, no, I don't know. This is tough. Life is tough. But what you just said is probably like 75 or more % of the people that I've talked to would tell their younger version that it's all going to be okay, even in those like super hard moments. And what it tells me is that we're just like resilient, beings, that we can get through things. It doesn't seem like it in the moment, but somehow we get the fortitude, we get the strength, we get the smarts, we get whatever it is. And here we are on the other side helping other people. So,
yeah, what a great reflection. Thank you for that.
You're most welcome. Can you, before you give us like how to connect with you, can you tell us what your book is called? Can we celebrate that you're an Amazon bestseller now? Like all these things?
Thank you. Yeah, it's called She Grows Rich, How to Become a Financial Powerhouse.
I like the title.
And it's all about personal finance and growing your wealth, and from a perspective that, it doesn't matter where you are, that you can grow it and step by step. So it's not, there's a little bit of, there's mindset in it. There's your relationship with money. There's your behavior with money. And then there's practical stuff as well as like, I have what's called a 7% rule. When you're looking at debt, if it's above 7%, pay it off. If it's below, invest your money instead. And that's how I built my wealth. There's a whole chapter on how to invest all by yourself. And it's easier than a lot of people think it is. You don't need a financial advisor.
I make the worst decisions. That's why I love financial
Doesn't matter. Yeah, but it doesn't matter, because as long as you're investing something in like a mutual fund, I'm not talking stocks, because that's,
that's crazy talk.
Yeah, that's crazy talk. But like mutual funds, just go with the market. It's really hard to make a bad decision. Just celebrating your wins and knowing that it's a long-term game. It's not, it didn't happen for me overnight.
Right. It's not like winning the lottery.
Time.
Right. You have to make a lot of smart decisions in a row.
Yeah. Just consistent, right? Just be consistent, be smart about it. And
so it sounds like it's a nice approachable book. It's not like something where it's, I couldn't do that, but it's like meet you where you are and you take these small steps to kind of get to
Exactly.
where you want to be, whatever rich is defined for you.
Yes, exactly.
Nice. And as I think maybe a week ago or so, 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago, bestseller list on Amazon. So
it
congratulations on
was.
that.
Thank you. Yes,
That's awesome.
bestseller in the finance category on Amazon. So,
That's awesome. There are
uh,
only 8 bazillion books on Amazon, so it's great to be in the bestseller list. Well, congratulations on that. If people are interested in learning more about you, maybe getting your help or just sharing their story because it's very similar to yours, what's the best way to get in your orbit?
you can go to my website, audreyfaustconsulting.com. There's several different things you can hit. You can join my newsletter. You can get a 20-minute profit plan call with me where I can, help you figure out something to do to make you and your business more profitable. There's a bunch of free resources. If you buy my book, there's a free book portal that you can log into,
Nice.
and that has amazing things in it. A really amazing money mindset training in there for free, as well as some great calculators that go with the book. So,
You're setting
yeah,
them up.
check me out.
So going to your website is the best way to
Yeah.
get into you. Okay, cool. So we'll put that, anyone listening, we'll put that information in the show notes so that you can connect with Audrey and see how she can help or if she can help or whatever it may be. But check out her book. Website is going to have the book, right? It's going to have the links to the
Yes.
books and all that stuff. So
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can just search on Amazon, She Grows Rich, and it should come up.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you allowing me to ask you questions. And I thank you for saying no to some of my questions when I made wrong assumptions. I think,
That's okay.
no, I'm not mad about it because I think it's important that we ask the questions and we say these things and that other people have the ability to say, no, that's not right. For so long growing up, I was afraid to ask questions that if I thought I could be wrong. We
Mm,
talked about that, like the fear of failure. So you just ask
yeah,
the safe questions. What's the fun in that? So thank you for allowing me to do that.
of course. Thanks for having me here. It was really fun.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you all for listening. If there's someone in your life that you think might need to know about Audrey, we'd love it if you share this episode with them and encourage them to reach out to Audrey for some help or get the resources or anything like that. So thank you for listening. With that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will be back next week with a brand new episode of the Life Shift podcast. Thanks again, Audrey. For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.